There we go. Hey guys, one of my subscribers was watching one of my older videos and comparing it to what my kayak looks like now, and he recommended I do a new video on my current kayak setup. I've made lots of changes over the years, and all those changes have been for a positive reason. As you saw on my splash screen there, I do consider this kayak a fishing machine. It has been very good to me. I've had it about 6 years, and I've caught a large number of fish out of this kayak. Since I video all of my fishing trips, it provides a log to me of what I caught, where I caught it, what I was using, water temperature, wind conditions, etc. I actually go back and watch some of those videos, not because I'm vain, because I want to see what I was doing and any particular reason I caught a fish at a specific place. And I've learned over the years that fish usually come back to certain spots over and over again, and there's a reason they do that. There's an oyster bed there, there's a pothole in a grass bed, etc. So I use it as a tool to learn, basically. I've never been a person who will fish 5 or 6, 7 or 8 hours. All my fishing trips are 3 to 4 hours maximum in a kayak, maybe 5 hours in my boat, but I just don't like to stay out all day fishing. Let me pull this thing outside so I'll have a little more light that you can see things, and we'll get started. Okay, starting up front. I know you've seen some of this before, but I'm going to repeat it for those who haven't watched my videos. Since I always use a trailer, I mounted a bow eye, stainless steel through the hull, and you definitely do not want to be pulling your kayak on a trailer using this right here. A lot of people do it. On my first kayak, which was a Jackson Big Tuna, 14 foot, quite heavy kayak, and when I was winching the kayak on the trailer, I actually broke that. Up front, I've made no changes in the front hatch. I store my life preserver, my bag of fishing lures, my anchor line. One of the things I really didn't like about this kayak, and a lot of people don't like it for the same reason, is the hatch. Now I love the hatch, the storage area very much, but it came with these type clips right here, straps, both front and back. I removed those, and in one of my videos I showed I had an elastic band across it that allowed me to lift it, but that was kind of cumbersome. I tried putting a torsion bar inside. A lot of guys do that. I did it, didn't like it, and it just took up so much extra room inside the little console there. So what I did is kind of manufacture my own. Using some leftover PC, I cut a little support bracket, put some screws on each end, and what that's going to do is sit there. These are going to loop over those screws so that it'll allow me to make like a hinge. And this piece here will be attached to this and attached to my lid, and it should work fine. And there we have the finished product. Works very well. Very happy with that. I like to keep things very, very simple. I only carry one bag of plastics and 2 trays of hard lures, and I'll show you where I keep those in a minute. I like to keep everything in front of me, all my tools, lures, everything. When I get ready to go fishing, I take the bag of plastics out of my front bin here, and I just stick them alongside under my leg. This is a very cheap, I think it's from a lunch meat container. It's a good place to throw stuff. When I change lures, I throw the plastic in there. I throw my hard bait in there so that when I get home I can wash it off and put it back in the proper container. And y'all know I love Procure, so that's where I keep my Procure. This little thing here is like a little cutting area. Sometimes, and very, very rarely, I like to use shrimp added to my lure, so I use that to cut the shrimp. This is my speed control for my trolling motor, and I'll go into detail on that a little later. That's a big area of improvement a lot of guys are doing on their kayaks now, putting trolling motors. I had one on the big Jackson tuna back in 2013, so I've been doing it a long time, so I've learned all the positives and negatives. The stock storage area on each side was a bungee cord holding whatever in place. I left that side as is, but on this side I removed the bungee cords and put a piece of plastic across right there so that I can keep my little tools in. And as I said, I like to keep things simple. I carry this one here for small trout or small fish that I want to grab, but I have my big one for the monster redfishes that I catch. And I have this for hooks that are in deep that I'm going to take some digging to get out. And that's it. Oh, I do have this right here. I'm sorry. That's my tools. That's the only tools I carry. I prefer a mushroom anchor, and this one is I think 5 pounds, and I keep it in this little area right here, and I keep it tied down with a little twisty tie there while I'm traveling. I use an anchor a lot. I drift fish a lot, but when I find the fish, when I run across a school of fish, I want to drop that anchor and keep me on the spot. So I do use an anchor trolley system, and I always anchor from the back, from the rear. I never anchor from the front or the sides. If you anchor from the side and you get a wave from a big boat or something, you can be in trouble. So if the anchor's at the back and I'm playing a big fish, I can usually keep him away from my anchor rope. But there's been times when they have actually gotten caught up in my anchor rope, even in the rear. I have always in the past carried 3 rods. I've started carrying 4. And I don't know if I'll keep that up or not, but I keep one in that Scotty out there, and I got these that I made right here for in each side. This keeps them up high enough for me to reach around. If they're down real low, they're going to get wet with water. Salt water is going to splash on them, and this makes it easier for me just to turn around and grab them. Same for these. I like these rocket launchers for rods, and of course I keep my net in one. I get asked all the time, what is that orange thing on your net for? Well, I've dropped many a net overboard. Most of them float, and sometimes you find them, but I've lost several, so I put the orange float on there to let me find my net when I do drop it overboard. I normally take 3 cameras with me. I have an old GoPro that I keep mounted up here for the front glamour shots, me holding those big redfish, big trout, etc. I have another one that I keep on this pole here, and I have one on my cap. The one up front does use an auxiliary battery power source. That's a USB port that puts out, I think, 5 volts, and it powers my front GoPro. I turn on that camera when I start the fishing trip, and it runs the entire trip. It's an old GoPro Hero 3, so the quality of the video is not that great, but you can shoot 15 hours probably on a 256 gig card without stopping, as long as you got power. On the other cameras, I do not use an external power source. I've used them in the past. I've had problems with them. To me, it's just at the 2-hour mark in my fishing trip, I just stop and change the batteries. It's very simple, quick, and easy. As I said earlier, I moved my fish finder here, and the reason for doing that was as I've aged, my vision's gotten worse, and I really couldn't see it up front. I have another video that explains my raising and lowering of my trolling motor, and I'll put a link to it up above in the corner here if you want to watch that. This is my battery storage area. A lot of people keep their batteries in the back, but I like to use a nice chest, so I installed this many years ago, and it has worked out very fine. The only changes I've made since I installed it, I had to replace my lid. The hinges broke, so what I did was install a little bit of a piece of 3/4 inch piece of plywood right there, I think. And what that does, it raises it up higher, because when I bought this battery, it's a little taller than the battery that I have. My battery is a 80 amp hour lithium iron phosphate, which is more than adequate for my short trips. I don't think I've ever used over 40% of the battery. I'm going to go into more detail later when I talk about my motor speed control and the electronics associated with it. I have installed a kill switch, and I'll talk about that later. As I said, I like to use a nice chest. I've tried bags, I've tried stringers, I've tried everything. I've actually had a dolphin come up and take a fish off of my stringer. They're a nuisance nowadays. Several years ago, I took a regular size tall ice chest. I cut about a 4-inch section out of the center all the way around and married the two pieces together, and you can see where I fiberglassed those two sections together. What that did was lower the profile on it and make it easier for me to reach around and open it, and also reducing the height kept it from being like a sail, because wind catches anything on a kayak that's standing up. This loaded spring right here keeps it open while I put my fish in it, get my drinks out or snack or whatever I have, and then all I do is just reach around and tap that right there, and it closes automatically. I really love that. This is actually my third trolling motor on this kayak. I started out with a 30-pound thrust Minn Kota freshwater motor, and I used it for a few years, and it started rusting on me, and I replaced it with a Newport 46-pound thrust, and it didn't last long at all. It only lasted about 2 years. It totally rusted. It was supposed to be resistant to salt water, but it absolutely was not, and I'll show you a picture of that. When I took the Newport trolling motor off, I discovered that it was so heavy that it bent the through bolt there that goes through the existing rudder hole on the kayak. So I wanted to replace it with another motor mount. I looked online and saw companies that make specific motor mounts for this kayak, and since my second big hobby is carpentry, and I have plenty of scrap wood sitting around, I just manufactured my own. I just copied one of them and made my own. It's anchored at several points. This handle was right here and screwed in over there in those holes. So what I did is I just relocated it, and I used those holes to secure this front portion to the kayak. And of course the through bolt there goes all the way through and really holds it down. As I said earlier, I posted an earlier video on how I raise and lower my kayak. The only other change that I've made to it is I've added this. I think I got that from Amazon. Something I missed telling you about, I told you I carry very few lures. I've got the bag of soft plastics up front. This carries some hard baits plus some extra jig heads, hooks, etc. And I added this little thing on right here to the back. It's just tied on. And it's got one little tray of primarily topwater lures. So let me take the seat off and show you my electronics. Well, before I get started taking all that apart, let me show you something I missed I was having a problem with the kayak hurting my heels when I was pushing the pedals back and forth, so I had an old piece of floor mat. I just cut a couple of pieces out of it, stuck it down with some double-sided tape, and that works pretty well. It really cushions my heels and feet. Okay, I've taken my seat out and I've opened my control boxes up, and I'll show you all that. Everything starts with the battery back here. I use XT90 connectors. They're waterproof. I use 10 gauge wiring throughout. It doesn't heat up, and I haven't had any problems with it. The Coast Guard requires that to use a circuit breaker at least equivalent to your trolling motor. My trolling motor is 40-pound thrust and would draw the maximum of 40 amps. I had a 40 on there, but it kept resetting, so it was hitting the maximum. So I've raised it up to a 50, and no problems. And as I said before, I check my wires for temperature fairly often. I've had no problems. These other two little connectors here, one goes to the fish finder and to the USB port up front. The second one provides a positive lead that goes through my kill switch and eventually works its way into my relay system. Trolling motors do pull a lot of amperage, and these are usually not big enough to handle the amps, so you have to use a relay system. What I'm doing is using a small power source to control a larger power source. If I fall overboard and the kill switch activates, then the relay kills all the power to my motor. For many years I used the switch in a box, and it works fine. I started experimenting with electronic speed control, ESC, several years ago, 2018, 2019. The first one that I built was called a PWM. What it does is pulses current to the trolling motor in waves. In other words, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. And therefore you use less power. And there is a big difference between what a switch uses and what a electronic speed control uses as far as your battery power. There is a third device that a lot of people are using, and that is built with a Hobbywing speed controller, which is intended for use on model trucks, cars, etc. Mine burn out on me very quickly. The wires going into it are 16 gauge, and 16 gauge will not handle very much amperage, so I would not recommend using that particular one. The PWM worked fine, except in the summertime it doesn't handle the heat well for me. So what I changed to eventually was this device here. This is from a Minn Kota trolling motor. This little card sits in the top of the housing, and it has a switch is tied to the handle that you turn, and it is electronic speed control. The big advantage with this, it is beefy. It will handle the amperage that is required by a trolling motor, and it works very well. I'm very pleased with it. Like all electronics, they can break down, so I keep a setup up front. I keep my switch set up front in a waterproof container in my storage area. And as you can see, I've kept everything kind of modular with the XT90 connectors. I can actually take that out of the circuit. If something happens to it, I can take it out, plug directly into my speed control. If this goes bad, I can just unplug it, plug in my switch, and keep going. The only problem I have is having to go into shoreline to do it. So, well guys, that concludes my video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section, and I'll be happy to get back with you.